And thank you for coming to our first working group meeting. It's finally happening. So it's good to see all of you here. I'm going to attempt to do this meeting in 30 minutes and not take up a full hour of your time. If that ends up not being enough time, we can change them in the future, but we're going to try it for now. So welcome. I'm going to get started just looking at the agenda. Actually, I'll just share my screen probably for this whole thing. Okay. So the agenda today, we'll discuss some working agreement proposals. We'll look at some GitHub projects. And if anyone else has something that they want to talk about, please add it here. And that way we can schedule time for it. So without further ado, we'll get started with some working agreement proposals. Right, so we're bootstrapping this whole new way of working together from the ground up. And so a lot of these proposals are kind of like, okay, what are we gonna do and how is it gonna work? They're a little bit basic, but they like have to get done so we can start working and all be on the same page. So I'm just gonna review them. The first one is how I expect working agreements to work. If you look at it and eventually get to the markdown version of the PR, it looks like this. I'm just gonna review it really fast and then I'll ask for comments. So the idea is anyone can submit, or anyone in this working group, an approver or lead can submit this. When you make one, please announce it on the Slack channel so other people know. When you make one, please present it at the next working group forum like I am doing right now. Anyone can comment. And voting, this is the most important part. So all of you who are part of the working group approvers or leads can cast a vote. My current method of voting suggestion is just to reply with a +1 or a -1. Maybe we can get fancier in the future, but for now, that's my low stakes way of voting. You'll have 1 week to vote. So like I'm presenting it to the forum today. We'll give everyone a week to vote. So that way, if you couldn't come to the forum, you have time to watch the recording, understand what's going on, vote, etc. I'm going to do it as a simple majority. And if we have a tiebreaker, the tech lead will break the tie. And then we'll merge the PR or close it. So that's the basic idea. If we want to talk about how we're working together, we're making these working agreements. We'll present them at these forums. You all get a +1, -1 vote. One thing I didn't say at the beginning is we have a lot of us. So if you want to add a comment, please like use the little raise your hand thing. So if you have a comment, I would love to hear it now. Or also, like I said, this will be open for a week for discussion. So you can also add it later on the PR itself. Yay, everyone's down with simple majority. Or I'm taking silence as yes. Great. I see a thumbs up from Greg. Thank you, Greg. Okay, so that's the most basic level one. And so that's how I'm hoping that these will go in the future. So then, I was writing these up for our working group. I was like, oh, how do I want us to work? I wrote one about moving to a PR only system, which I'll talk more about in a second, and how reviewers should work. And then the TOC came to me and was like, hey, maybe those shouldn't be working group level working agreements. Maybe some of these should be done at the foundation level. And they wanted it in a Google Doc. So I closed those PRs. And instead, there's this doc that we discussed in the TOC meeting yesterday. If you go here and you open this little sidebar, you'll see it's actually 4 different ones that they've kind of grouped together that Jeff and Ruben and I have been working on. And I'm just going to kind of breeze through these because I think some of them are a little more just like maybe minutia. Comment on your own time. I hope there's nothing too scandalous about what we want our names of our GitHub teams and access to be. So if you have thoughts on that or feel like we're missing something, please add it here. The bigger one though is moving to a PR only workflow. This has been floating around a lot. I think this will make things a lot better for the community to know what's going on. So it's not just all VMware has write access and no one else does. So that's changing soon and I'm excited for it. I'm going to just give us, this is a little bit bigger than GitHub team names. So does anyone have Thoughts on this? Excited for this? Josh is excited. Great. I'm personally very excited to move to a more like community. Yay, I was excited. Workflow. Maybe I should mention the way that since they're in the doc, the TOC has had a lot of opinions. And so they wanted to work in a doc first before we move it to GitHub. And it's a little bit harder to have conversations in GitHub. But eventually the TOC will vote on these, not us. But of course, they want your opinions and thoughts on them. So moving to a PR only workflow. The next one is about roadmap visibility. This is mostly for the tech leads, telling them how to, what our role is and what we have to provide to the community about, showing what we're doing. I've made some sample projects that we'll get into later. And the last one that Ruben wrote is about kind of like a stale bot. So those are 4 working group. No, wait for it. Working agreement. I don't really love that it's a working agreement for a working group. The working gets confusing. So if you have a better name, please, feel free to share at some point. Any thoughts on these? You can provide now, provide on the doc, but I'll leave just a little empty space now for anyone to add a comment. Great.
Isn't 7 days a bit short time to mark an issue as stale?
I agree. Especially at our current rate of what we are reviewing issues and PRs at. I suggest leaving that as a comment in the doc and I will support it. Coker, looks like you might have a thought.
Are stale branches outside the scope of this too, because they also bother me. But they could be a separate problem so that we don't conflate things.
That sounds great. It sounds like you might want to write your own, or you might want to just go through and start making some PRs to delete some. Well, it's not done in a PR. I don't know. Just go through and deleting some things. I'm all for more cleanup. Okay. There's no more thoughts on this. I'm going to go over to this last one that I put all these emojis pointing at because I actually think it's the most interesting one. So now that we have some groundwork. And if you eventually click through the PR and get to the page itself, it looks like this. So now that we have this idea that we're moving to the PR workflows, right? It's not officially approved yet, but we're headed there soon. It's like, okay, now that we're making PRs, what does that mean for reviewers, right? Someone has to be merging them. And what is that process? And so that's what this working agreement proposal is about. So I try to write this as what is the problem statement that we're trying to solve from all these different perspectives? Like as a PR author, right? I want my PR reviewed in a timely manner. As an issue author, I want to be able to fix my bug in a timely manner. As an approver, that's you all, I want to know which PRs and issues that I'm supposed to be, which ones am I responsible for? And as a tech lead, I want to know, hey, how many open issues do we have? And I want to be able to assign people to them. So the solution, or my proposed solution, is to have GitHub projects for each subgroup. So like in this working group, our subgroups are Diego, garden containers, logging and metrics, and networking. And here's the workflow that I'm imagining. Let's see if I click on this, if it makes it bigger. Did it? Oh, it's okay. So There are swim lanes, they're probably a little fuzzy for you, that are called inbox, reviewer assigned, review in progress, done, and then triage complete needs fix. So my thought is, issues and PRs get added here. This is the issue workflow, so I'll just talk through that first. The issue gets added here. Right now it's not automatic. Maybe in the future it'll be automatic, but right now I manually add approver and I move it to this swim lane. Then you as the approver, you'll work with the author to understand the issue, go back and forth with them. I'm leaving it up to you to decide on, how you do that on what schedule. I don't want to micromanage you. I trust that if I assign you, you will eventually get to your own work. And the idea is that as soon as you leave one comment on that issue, it'll move into this swim lane. So I really just want to know, hey, has anyone replied to this person? Because we're not always been great about that in the past. Then with an issue, either you helped them fix their bug, they figured it out, or you helped them figure it out. We move it to done. Or maybe you say, oh, you found like a real bug that we should fix in the future. And so that would be this needs fix swim lane. So as an approver, I do not expect you to be the one to fix the bug. If you want to, that would be great. But I want you to be there to help triage and reply to this community member. And then I'll be responsible for keeping this swim lane prioritized. Any thoughts or questions here?
Do we what's the what do we get from the done column?
A sense of accomplishment.
Okay.
You're right. Maybe we could delete it. Maybe it's not needed and we could just have them go off the board.
Sure, if you just wanted visibility into what was recently fixed or something, but.
Does this result in an ever-increasing list of things that need to be fixed? How do things, if someone points something out, it's wrong, but no one's going to fix it. Do we keep track of this forever? Do we just let them pile up because we know that they're wrong? Maybe that's fine. Maybe that's okay.
Yeah, that is something that I was struggling with in this. As tech lead, I don't have the authority to tell you to do work, right? Your companies prioritize whatever work that you're doing. I can have suggestions. I do think that there's some benefit to keeping them open. Like when I'm working in different open source areas and I'm like searching for my problem, it's like, oh, by the way, I had this problem too. Like I love being the sixth person to reply and be like, me too, please fix this. So like, I definitely think there's a benefit of keeping them open. But yes, I do see that as something we will probably have to tackle in the future. But maybe we're not there yet. Okay, this is a big change in how we've been working. Get to assign people to do, some reviews. No other thoughts? We're all down for it. That makes me very happy if that's true.
I guess on the topic of that assignment, is there an algorithm for determining how they're assigned, or is it just round robin, or is there going to be some heuristic to determine who gets what ticket?
I plan on starting at round robin. But I also understand that some of you only work in very specific repos and not every repo in an area. So it's going to be, yeah, we'll figure it out. A round robin plus some human intervention. Okay, so that is the issue workflow. The PR workflow is very similar. PRs come in, they get assigned a reviewer. The reviewer works with the PR author to make sure the code is well written. Eventually they merge it in. I'm asking as soon as you reply once to move it to this swim lane so that we know, hey, we've responded. And the reviewer merges the code and then it automatically goes to done and gives us that sense of accomplishment. Cool. So in the FAQs, there's just like a few little edge cases, like, oh, how can I see which ones are assigned to me? How much time will this take? I don't know. We'll find out. Please tell me. I'm not setting any SLIs or SLOs or whatever those acronyms are. But I do ask that you look at your issues at least once a week. Just generally pull through them and make sure you're replying and being a good community member. And, Greg, if I assign you as a reviewer to something that you have no context on or anyone, feel free to push back and say, no, I don't think so. But you can also use it as a chance to learn something. And maybe you're pairing with someone. Okay, so in GitHub, like you can't, let's say, Greg, you submit a PR. You can't actually review your own PR in GitHub reviewers. You need to have someone else review it for you. So let's say you were pairing with Anthony. Anthony could review your PR. Great, we're pairing. That's a form of review. Or maybe you were pairing with Anthony, but like he didn't get to merging it yet, and I assigned Ben. Anthony's free to go in there and be like, actually, I was working on this. I'm just gonna assign myself. So feel free to override. Like if you want to take the work, please do. Don't feel like you can't do that. And then my last comment is there's sometimes issues that we write that are like, hey, we intend to support HTTP2, or we intend to do C2C with TLS. And they're not necessarily like one issue for one person to review. And I'm going to call those proposals, and they will not be a part of these GitHub projects. We're going to have another board that's tracking them. So like these boards will be more for, hey, we're getting issues and PRs done. It's like the day-to-day work. And then the proposal board will be, hey, zooming out, looking back, or looking from a broader perspective, what are the big epics that are being worked on? And I'm not quite sure exactly what the workflow of that will be yet, but we'll figure it out in the future. So I have linked all of these boards. Let's see, I'm just going to go to the networking one, but they should all be somewhat identical. So here we have an inbox. I have not started assigning reviewers yet since we had not had this conversation yet. Jeff assigned himself to some. Thanks, Jeff. Some reviews are in progress. A lot of things have been done since I set up this board, and one made it all the way to needs fix. Okay, these are all of the things that I plan to review in less than 30 minutes, which I did. Thank you for your active listening. Are there any other questions, thoughts, topics you would like to discuss?
Is there a cleanup phase necessary before we start doing this? Or do we feel like we're ready to start? I'm just thinking out loud here, so I apologize.
What kind of cleanup phase are you imagining?
I haven't looked at the issues recently. I imagine giving Stalebot a 3-week head start would be a helpful process, I guess. I imagine there are a lot of things that are stale that should get cleaned up. Maybe that's the way to phrase it. I haven't actually looked recently, but I'm guessing.
Maybe, I guess. If as a reviewer, if you are assigned something and you're like, okay, this was open 2 years ago, you are free to respond. Hey, this is old. You know, if you're still having an issue, let me know or else I'm going to close it. So I guess feel free to do the, manual stale bot.
Cool.
And I have been cleaning them up somewhat as I've, been doing this organizing. They're actually not that bad. They're not near as bad as you would think.
Sweet.
So next steps will be, there are, or I guess action items are, there are 2 proposals that you all can vote on. That's this one about the meta idea of working agreements and the one about the review workflow. So you can go to those, comment on them, or vote on them by leaving a plus or a -1. And then there's the doc to the TOC or the foundation level ones that you're free to comment on, but ultimately will not have a vote on. And so next week, I'll count votes, I'll merge things, I'll announce results, and hopefully at that time, I'll also start assigning reviewers. Josh says, great. So does Greg and Ben. Yay. Okay, well, Jeff is partying over there. Hopefully the next meetings will not be so much of me talking at you, but I appreciate you listening while we get this all bootstrapped and while we all get on the same page. Because I want to make this a good community and a good working group. And I want to have buy-in from everyone. I don't want to just start doing things. So I appreciate you listening. So I'll call it there. I'll stay on in case you didn't want to ask something in front of the group. But if no one stays, it's good seeing you all.